welcome to the mind of D.H. Lawrence, a controversial poet, playwright, painter, essayist and literary critic from Eastwood in Nottingham. His birth home stands at 8A Victoria Street and is now home to the Birthplace Museum, which is where his story began. An upper-class woman having an affair with a working-class gamekeeper? Lesbian lovers frolicking in the sea? Naked men wrestling? Ugh! Lawrence's writing tended to cause a stir, as he often wrote about intimacy and connection. Prudish people everywhere campaigned to have his works banned, and his descriptions of the people back in Eastwood turned their families against him. Life for Lawrence was never easy. Lawrence's most famous novel, Lady Chatterley's Lover, was published in 1928. He was so desperate for it to get out there that he paid for it to be printed privately, circulating subscription copies amongst his friends. But it wasn't until 1960, when Penguin Books were acquitted of obscenity in the Old Bailey, that we were finally able to get our hands on it. So what was all the fuss about? Well, firstly, there were 3 versions of the book. My favourite version is 2, which was originally titled John Thomas and Lady Jane. Then it became Tenderness. And by the time we get to the final version, the novel is notorious for its emotional and, mainly physical relationship between Constance Reed and Oliver Mellors, which contains the then unprintable explicit descriptions of their sexual relations. There's a lot of F's. So much, in fact, that a lawyer in the court case counted them out. How sad. The Rainbow is a family-based novel that features 3 generations of the Brandwen family. On the surface, it might seem like a simple plot, but, nothing is ever that simple with Lawrence. And consequently, it was also banned for its treatment of sexual desire, with 1,011 copies seized and burnt. For Tom, sex is between the paragraphs, and readers can use their imagination to decode the details. ... For Anna and Will, desires are described and fragments of their bodies are alluded to. Ooh. However, it's Will and Anna's daughter Ursula that causes the most controversy. By the time she's a grown woman, she dares to demand spiritual and intellectual freedom. This results in an affair with a soldier, becoming pregnant before marriage, and just to round it off, a lesbian affair with her teacher. Lovely. It was declared unfit for family fiction. Censorship would be a recurring problem for Lawrence in his fiction, poetry, and even his painting. Lawrence struggled to publish Women in Love, which was a sequel to The Rainbow, for 4 years after he finished writing it. The novel was then still subject to a string of prosecutions. Amongst many controversial moments, one of the most remembered and far most entertaining film themes of all time, may I add, is when Birkin and Gerald experiment with naked Japanese wrestling, which has been interpreted by critics and prosecutors as a homosexual act. This is your 5-second warning. Lawrence channeled rant coming on. This is something which doesn't frequently happen at the UK at current. And as an aspiring writer myself, I fail to understand on what grounds a court would find it acceptable to try and ban fiction once it's already been published. So who is it that has the authority to decide that the public would be better off if they never read the words printed between the covers? The justification behind censorship of some literature makes me question whether freedom of expression really does exist. If people talked about the slew topics that are covered in literature, then those individuals might be more comfortable with their lives, instead of society being full of depressed, middle-aged people who attempt to ban literature that may influence the free expression of people of all ages. That's the rant over, guys. Phew! The general controversy of a book can sometimes end up doing the opposite, undesired effect, as people are motivated to find out what all the fuss is about. When Lady Chatterley's Lover was finally published, the demand was so great, Penguin had to ration out books to shops. Foyle's bookshop sold their entire stock in the first 15 minutes, and the printers just couldn't keep up with the demands. Lawrence paved the way forward for the permissive society and greater freedom of expression for all. Writers like E.L. James, author of 50 Shades trilogy, have become a household name after writing about the kinky desires of her submissive protagonist, Anastasia Steele. Although he wrote about sex in his books, He was rebelling against the over-intellectualisation of culture, and Lawrence was rather a prudish man himself, believing that sex was a connection between two people which can never be reversed. He did, however, believe that a woman should be submissive, but this has nothing to do with whips and chains, rather his odd views on power relations between the genders. I would argue that writers like Lawrence, without even meaning to, have created a platform for slew and naughty books where the public want to read about the exciting and, to be quite frank, sexual relations of those somewhat fictional characters who lead more exciting lives than us.